Welcome to Toy Business Unboxed, your gateway to the secrets of the toy industry. Here, Jason Shea, a toy entrepreneur and expert in the field.
Every product we develop is really inspired by some of the real life experience that we have with our son.
60% of all toys last year were sold on Amazon, which is incredible.
Be passionate about it because it's a road, it's a journey.
Like when you have an idea that you think is like gonna somewhat like change the world, make things better, I'd say go for it.
We'll guide you through the enchanting world of toy design, marketing, and manufacturing. Now let the unboxing begin.
Welcome back to another episode of Toy Business Unboxed. Today we have a special guest that joined us all the way from Japan, Tokyo, Japan actually, and Jacek. His journey into the Japanese tabletop industry is anything but conventional. He was currently a key player at a design house in Japan called PZ Katwa, and it's also a home to Japan's largest board game café chain and the indie publisher Jelly Games. And he's on a mission to bring Japanese creativity to the world and the rest of the international board game industry. So in this episode, he's going to join us, talk about his background, his journey going from in the video game space to the board game space. And we'll be talking about a lot of the Japanese unique culture and also some of the unique challenges to translate between the East and the West culture. And for those of you who knows, I also have a lot of background in Japan. I used to live in Tokyo for 5 years, and my wife is Japanese. So I know a little bit about the Japanese culture and the unique challenges that you face as well. So thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today.
Thank you very much for having me. Ohayo gozaimasu. Good morning. Hello from Tokyo, where it's a nice, crisp 39-ish degrees Celsius morning. I don't know that it's in Fahrenheit, but I can tell you it's way too hot.
Yeah, it's very hot. I think that's close to about 100 Fahrenheit or 39 degrees Celsius. And also, Japan is very humid. So it's not just hot, but very, very humid.
Unfortunately so. Unfortunately true, but I'm at home with a nice aircon on, so I should be safe. Good morning.
Sure.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so first, let's dive into your background. I know before you got into the board game industry, you used to work in the video games. How do you end up in working in the board game industry in Japan? So,
Good question. It's all a little bit of an accident. So I used to live in the United Kingdom. That's where I completed my degree for game technology, and that was kind of a mix of game design, business, programming, 3D modeling, animation, kind of anything and everything involving video games. And then I used to work at Unity, which is a software house, and I taught people programming. I taught people how to make games.
yeah,
I've always been passionate about supporting independent creators to just make stuff and share ideas, share creativity, share kind of our thoughts and feelings of the world via interactive art. That was always important to me.
I see.
And then, the pandemic happened, Brexit happened, and basically that meant that the UK said no thank you to being part of the EU.
Yeah.
They made a British exit, hence the term Brexit for any of those unaware. And kind of politically, that didn't sit right with me. Of course, as a Polish person living in the UK, I think, I was like, interesting. And in my life, I've moved every 8 years or so. I was approaching 8 years of living in the UK. So
I see.
my
Okay.
partner and I, we were like, okay, what should we do? And we just said, let's try Japan. Let's try it for a year.
Okay.
See what happens. If we like it, we'll stay. If we don't like it, we'll go somewhere else. Spoiler, we really liked the 1 year. We decided to stay there longer.
Yeah.
At that time, I was still working in video games. I was working in a startup. And the way startups are, some of you listening to this might know, they don't always work out for many different reasons.
Sure.
So after a couple of months, I found myself on the job hunt again. And as someone with limited Japanese proficiency, trying to find a job in Japan is really, really difficult.
Yeah.
So I was applying like crazy, to all the studios I could find, anyone that would accept English speakers. And then in the meantime, there was this cafe next to me, and I've been there with my friends to play board games called Jelly Cafe.
Yeah.
And I've seen a lot of tourists, a lot of foreigners come in and try and play the games. So I just sent the company an email being like, "Hey guys, you're 10 minutes away from my house by train. I can speak English, Polish, German. I can teach board games. I love board games. I can teach any visitors you have, any rules. So, you can shoot me an email if you have people coming by. I'll pop up. I'll tell them the rules. You'll pay me something, something minor,
Oh,
I'll help."
okay. That's how you started. Okay. Yeah.
And they replied to my email saying like, "No, thank you." Like, no, seriously.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Um, but do you want to stop by the office for a chat?
Okay.
So I said, okay, sure. And then I prepared some materials of games I've translated into English, uh, prepared my CV. Basically, I went in there and I continuously talked broken Japanese until they gave me a part-time job
Okay. Right. Yeah.
at the main office. And from there, I just they liked me enough to keep me on full time. So now I
Mm.
accidentally ended up in board games, and I do a whole bunch of stuff at PZ Katwa Design and Jelly Jelly Games, Jelly Jelly Print, Jelly Jelly Cafe, Jelly Jelly Store, and Jelly
Yeah.
Jelly International.
I see. I see. So, what is your role right now? Because you are very multifaceted right now. So, what do you do exactly in the company?
That is a good question. Officially, my role is global developer.
Okay.
Um, Unofficially, what that means is that basically I'm the guy that does anything that involves any language that's not Japanese that happens in
I
the
see. Okay.
company.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's fun. It's very challenging. It's very interesting because basically, anytime we get an email, a question, a support in English, they're like, "Hey, that's like, what do we do?" And I'm like,
Mhm.
"That's a great question. I don't know about international tax laws yet, but give me,
Yeah.
give me a couple of days,
I see.
and I'll get back
Okay.
to you."
I see.
Um, but no, technically, what I do is I translate the games from Japanese to English
Okay.
when we produce English versions for the international market. Um, I'm in charge of what's it called? Searching for publishers for our titles. So, we want to localize our titles in many different countries, many different areas, so that players all around the world can get to play our wonderful games. So I'm in charge of, looking for those connections and suggesting games to publishers, sending them samples, setting up meetings, and
I see.
trying to convince them that our games would be a good fit for the market. And I do the inverse of that as well. So I'm in touch
Oh,
with publishers
I see.
and we take their games, translate them to Japanese, and sell them within Japan.
Interesting. Okay. 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 So
So
that
those
lead
my
me
main
to an
ones.
interesting question. That just take the games because you have worked from both market. What kind of game tend to be more successful for the Japanese market based on your experience versus the
So
Western market? So,
hmm, based on my experience and what we focus on at Jelly Jelly, so again, biased by my experiences, is small box games are kind of our focus, and it's what tends to do better. Of
mhm.
course, you can still find your big box players in board game shops, right? There are still your Gloomhavens, your big, 7 kilo, 10 kilo boxes
Mhm.
of board games. But the market definitely leans towards smaller. And you've lived in Japan yourself, so you know that
Yeah.
the housing space is much different.
They don't have a lot
Uh,
of shelving space to store board games somewhere random. So, yeah.
they don't. I am currently surrounded by them on the floor. I said before the interview, we've got some
Yeah.
Calixes from
I see.
IKEA coming.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, space is definitely at a premium. So because space is at a premium, whether you're a family, a couple, by yourself, and you want to get into this hobby, like you're just naturally going to have to make difficult choices, right? Because do
Mhm.
I choose game A or do I choose game B? Um, and that combined with the Japanese economy, which is, surprisingly not that great for your average
Mhm.
consumer.
Yeah.
So when it comes to making the choice between, hey, I can buy one big game that will take up a lot of shelf space, or I can buy multiple smaller games, and they're
Mhm.
still good games, then I think folks will more likely lean towards those smaller experiences.
Mhm.
Um, and that's been our experience. Like those sell better for our customers. There's more interest in them. Mm, People can actually have them in their house, which is nice. Um,
I see. I see. And how do you and your team choose which international games to bring into Japan? What are some of the criteria besides the size that you're looking for?
That is a very good question. I'm still learning. Sometimes I'm like, this game will be a hit. And I show it to the team and they're like, we're not going to do this. I'm like, well,
Okay. I see.
so I'm still learning.
Yeah.
I mean, it feels like a bit of a cop out to say
Hmm.
a good game because, all games are good.
Yeah.
But there's definitely a certain amount of criteria we look at
Mm.
when we publish games. So I'll start with like the abstract stuff first, maybe, and then I'll
Okay.
describe a
Sure.
bit more of the game mechanisms.
Sure.
Um, the two key things that I always hear from my colleagues is box size. We've already said.
Yeah.
Even if I bring them a small box, they're like, "Can we make it smaller?" And I'm like, "I'll
Okay.
ask. I'll let you know. We'll
Yeah.
see."
Okay. Yeah.
So box size and the art style. Um, Art style is very important in the Japanese
Oh.
market.
Okay.
Again, things here tend to be more kawaii. Things here
Yeah.
tend to be cuter,
Yeah.
lighter,
Hmm.
um, more kind of approachable. Whereas, in the West, we have a lot of different art styles. You've got your like fantasy, gritty art styles, like that, whether it's 80s fantasy or like dark fantasy or a lot of spaceship stuff or a lot of sci-fi stuff.
Mm.
We are starting to see more of a trend with anthropomorphic animals.
Hmm.
Cute little humanoid animals are becoming very popular in board games
Mm.
in the West. And then there's the classic boring German art, as people say. You've got there's a distinction people often say between American games and European games,
Hmm.
whereas American games are like beer and pretzel games, right? So you'll have a beer, you'll throw some dice, you're like, yes, I attack you for 5, and
Yeah. Okay.
my warrior levels up, and then you're eating some pretzels.
Yeah.
Whereas Euro games are very much like, I have 5 wood and I convert that to 3 coal, and the
Oh,
3
that's
coal
more
lets me move that
calculation.
train
Yeah.
2 spaces, that kind of
Yeah. 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 That's a good description. Yeah. Uh,
thing. So that's where the German boring art comes from. It's very much like, here's trains, here's some wheat, here's some, people stood in a field or whatever.
mhm.
So oftentimes we have to ask the publisher if they'd be comfortable with changing the art style, just because we know
Mm.
it won't be popular, eye-catching, or right for the market.
Oh,
Um,
I see.
which is interesting to me because I like different art styles. I have board games in any and every art style you can imagine, and there's a unique selling point to every art style, I think. And I also think
Mhm.
it's quite nice to share different cultures, different art styles with people.
Mhm.
Um, but at the end of the day, you want your product to reach customers. So we do almost always ask if we can adapt the art style to better fit the market.
I see, I see. And just a follow-up question on that. Obviously, you don't
Mhm.
need to share a specific number, but I'm just wondering, how does that kind of business arrangement usually work? Do you pay the Western publisher like a royalty? Then you help them with all the translations and bring them into the Japanese market? Or how does that kind of a partnership
Mhm.
typically happen?
So there's two main types that we focus on. If we don't make, I'm sorry, my alarm is going off. Or just
Mhm.
making sure I'm awake. I can confirm, I think.
Yeah.
Uh, Um, so there's two main types. One is we kind of buy the game as is. So we use their factory, that we leave the box size the same, we
Mhm.
leave the components the same. We just change the language. So we don't change the art style, we don't change the box size. Those do happen. We
Okay.
just send them all the Japanese files. They produce the game, and
Okay.
in that case, we simply kind of buy them from the publisher, right, per
Oh,
copy.
okay.
We'll
Yeah,
pay a reduced price per copy, ship it to us, and then we sell it.
I
Um,
see. Okay.
and then the other type is based on royalties, like you said. So we
Mhm.
kind of get the license to the game, and then we can, with the publisher's permission, we can change the art style, we can change the box size, we can change the components, whatever we want. That's pre-approved. And then when we manufacture the game, we simply pay a percentage per copy that we print to the original publisher.
I see. Okay, okay, that's interesting. And how about the other way around? Because you also export some of the Japanese game to the Western market. How does that kind of arrangement typically work?
So very much similar, just the other way around. So we have our catalog that I send out or show as shows
Mm,
to publishers. When they're interested, they receive a sample. So we always like to send a physical sample because it's important, right?
Yeah.
It's one thing to read about a game or read about a toy, and then you actually get your hands on it, and you're like, oh, this is different
Yeah,
than I imagined.
for sure.
Um, so we send out a sample. If everyone's happy, then we do the same kind of thing. We say, hey, do you want to just buy it from us with your localized version? We have our own factory. We've got Jelly Print, and I can tell you more about that in a second. Or we say, hey, you guys have the license. You do whatever you want. Just, please check with us first. And then they'll pay a percentage for for each copy.
Okay. Kind of similar. Okay,
Mhm,
I
mhm.
see. And when you are doing the other way around, I was just wondering what kind of game tend to attract the Western publisher more from the Japanese designers?
It's a good question, and I think that's actually part of the both the tricky part and the interesting part is that it's all about finding the right publisher
Hmm.
because the Western market is so big, it's so wide. There's so
Yeah,
many companies, there's so many potential customers, there's so many publishers, there's so many,
yeah.
there's so much. Um, so it's less about knowing what does well and what doesn't,
Hmm.
um, and more about knowing, oh, these guys have certain focus. Their games
Focus.
are, this certain type of game. These guys have a certain type of game.
Hmm.
So it's just approaching the right people and knowing like these guys will really like the box style that we have, for example. There's a certain box style that a certain publishers really like, and that could be enough to get them interested. Other ones, are specific mechanics. Or like, okay, this is like a party game of a conversational party game. And
Hmm.
this publisher publishes a lot of those games. Um, that being said, our most popular title recently is called Yubibo,
Hmm.
which translates from Japanese to finger sticks.
Hmm.
And if you've played Twister, the game with your whole body, where you're
Hmm.
like putting your hands and legs on the collars, it's like that but for your fingers. So
Hmm.
you're working together cooperatively to hold up sticks between your fingertips and not let them drop.
Hmm.
Very silly, not a traditional board game,
Hmm.
but that's been doing great. So that's been signing in many countries, many territories, and it's one of those games when you see it, you get it, and you want to play it. So
Okay. So that's a good example of the game that actually went really well cross-culturally without bringing too much modification as well.
yeah,
And
yeah.
what has been some of the biggest challenge for you when you try to localize game, for example, into the Japanese languages so far?
Hmm. Biggest challenges. I mean, like I mentioned, it's still the kind of not fully knowing what the Japanese audience will or will not
Hmm.
like.
Like, okay.
Um, and a lot of that depends on cultural. Like culture is just so important when it comes to localizing board games.
Mm.
And I don't mean board games, like mechanics focused ones, but anything that's more party, more conversation, more between players. It's
Oh,
such a different culture.
I can imagine trivia game being very, very hard to translate into the Japanese culture because there's a lot of trivia game that's more culture nuances that it's almost impossible to translate that
Yes.
properly. So,
Yes. We get a lot of stuff that's like, hey, this sells, millions of copies and people love it. And we look at it and it's, pop culture references or like Western
yeah,
shows,
doesn't work.
Western games. And we're like,
Yeah. I mean,
you
even
know,
myself, I struggle to play some of the US trivia game because I didn't grow up in the United States. I grew up in Taiwan. So I
yeah,
didn't understand a lot of the inside joke that the trivia game have here in US. So I can imagine try to translate that into the Japanese culture. It would just fall flat. People don't understand what exactly the joke is about at all. So,
exactly. So we'd have to completely change the question. And at that point, we're essentially making the game ourselves in a way. Do you know what I mean?
mm,
And it's similar. So we've recently released a very, very small game. It fits in your pocket. It looks like a pack of gum, and
okay.
it's just questions that you ask your friends, right?
Okay.
It's very, very simple. Let's say the question was like, person most likely to rewatch a movie. Okay,
Mm,
and we count down 3, 2, 1. If you think it's you raise your hand.
okay.
If you think it's someone else, you point at them. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
If you pointed at someone who raised their hand, you both get a point.
I
So
see. Okay. I
super
see.
simple, right? Very simple game. Take it with
Yeah.
you. And you're like, okay, that sounds, you know, very, very simple. But again, culturally, people in Europe are more likely to be mean to their friends, right? If you really like someone, then
Mhm.
you're comfortable being mean to them. In English, we call it banter.
Yeah.
In Europe, I don't know what they call it, but if I
Yeah.
really love someone, I'm going to be mean to them, right? And they're going to be mean to me back, and then we'll
Yeah.
hug, and it's all good.
Yeah.
Not so in Japan at all, right?
That's true. Yeah. Mhm.
Very different.
Yeah.
So even I remember like when I was translating one of the games, and I said the first player is the one who's most likely to go to jail, right? Because
Mhm.
in Europe that would spawn a fun conversation, like you totally get arrested, no, you'd get arrested, that
Yeah.
kind of thing. Here they were like, no, we shouldn't do that, that's
We
mean.
shouldn't do
I'm
that.
like, I
I
know
can
it's
totally
mean.
relate to that. That's very Japanese because they are so. I think they are afraid of confrontation. That's just part of the culture. They don't want to confront
Yes,
each other, and also they don't like to speak out loud of what they really think. Which is one thing I also struggle with the Japanese culture because a lot of things is unspoken rule, or there's a Japanese word called like cookie means breathe the air. It's like what air? What are you talking about? I don't understand. But that's a very unique Japanese thing that you're referring to.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it's one of those things where like culture really influences so much of how we interact with each other.
Hmm.
That even things that sound simple in nature are like, well, culturally, this just wouldn't work as well, for
Hmm.
X, Y, or Z reasons. So, um, yeah, it's not so much a challenge as it is just a really interesting facet of constantly learning and improving what I know and getting to tell other people, and they all are like,
Hmm.
oh yeah, interesting, true,
Yeah,
you
because they
know.
don't understand the cultural differences and the nuances unless you have lived in both countries like me and you did or is right now. And also, what are some of the trends you're seeing in Japan in the indie board game industry right now?
Hmm. So the indie board game scene in Japan is super, super cool. Before I'll answer your question, but just quickly, I want to introduce it to folks who might not be aware. So, in let me make a video game. It's called analogy.
Good.
So, in video games, people often get together for something called game jams, right? Where you have
Hmm.
a set amount of time to make a video game together.
Hmm.
Usually 48 hours, sometimes 72, whatever. You get a theme, you get together with a team. It's meant to be challenging, and the constraints kind of breed creativity, right? So
Hmm.
I've got 48 hours to make a game. What can I do? And sometimes those games then turn on into fuller games, and they become, successors or full releases. And the
Hmm.
term jam came from the music industry, where musicians would get together and just jam out, right? Just jam
Hmm.
out some tunes, see what works.
Hmm.
So that's really big in the West.
Yeah.
Uh, I've participated in many myself. They're good fun as long as you get your sleep.
Sure.
Um,
Yeah.
and there's a big culture of that kind of independent creativity.
Hmm.
Uh, Not so much in board games, okay? So far, at least that I'm aware of. I know it's slowly changing. Not so much in board games. People don't tend to get together, make their own board games, sell their own board games as much. Very much you get people making prototypes, and then they're looking for publishers, they're looking for Kickstarters,
Yeah.
but they're making those prototypes as a business idea, right?
Yes.
Or to
Yeah.
share their creation, their finished creation of the world.
Hmm.
Here we have this scene called the Dojin scene, right? The Dojin is gosh, I forgot the official translation, but it's when you make something as a fan, right? It came
Hmm.
from drawing comics, manga of stuff you like,
Okay.
writing fan fiction, making music, making anything fan goods related, or for yourself.
I
And
see.
we have that seen as well in board games. So people make their own board games. They get together in these things called game designer circles. And a game
Hmm.
designer circle is essentially a group of people, like-minded individuals working together.
Hmm.
Um, and they make small board games, card games.
Hmm.
And we have an official show twice a year called Tokyo Game Market, where
Okay.
they can sell those games.
Okay.
And again, the super cool thing about that is you get your finished, pristine productions. You get your full boxes with rules, with components, with pieces, and you get people that print cards on business cards because it's cheaper. Put them in a plastic bag, and that's the
Yeah.
game you get.
Mm.
Okay, and the
Okay.
rules are online on a Google Doc. So
Okay.
it's
Yeah.
it's it's this whole just huge and varied field of creativity and passion and weird ideas and unique ideas. And people are so open to interacting with this, to purchasing those games, to checking them out. We're
Interesting.
talking
Okay.
thousands of games every show. It's on twice a year. Um, and that's very much kind of the cornerstone of the Japanese indie scene, right? As people that
Oh, interesting.
make
Very,
those
very
games.
different. Okay.
And as someone who's looking for games to publish, sometimes I'll go up to the folks. So I'm like, oh, your game looks interesting. They're like, sorry, it's sold out. I'm never making it again. I made 50 copies just for fun. It's over. Right. And
Really? They don't want to make more? That's very interesting. Okay. Huh.
and it's really nice to me to have something that's not driven by like profit, right? They're not making
Mm.
like, even if I'm like, hey man, this could sell, this is great. They're like, I'm good. I made this game for myself. I finished it. I'm moving on to the next one, So
Oh, okay. Okay.
it,
Okay.
it's very
Hmm.
much not for everyone, of course, but
Yeah.
there's such a focus on creativity and making unique and interesting games and just showcasing them to the world. And it's
Mm.
something that folks are now starting to organize in the West. There's a couple of people that are doing a great job who have come to game market or been familiar with game market and are trying to do the same in America and in Europe.
Hmm.
Um, but it's still very young. It's still very
Very
niche.
different. Okay. Okay. Okay.
And it's
What
something
would
I
be a
really
good
recommend.
website to check out more information for our listener for the Japanese version?
So if you are interested, you can check out the Game Market website. They have an official website. It's just gamemarket.jp.
Market.jp.
Warning, it's all in Japanese,
Yeah.
but your browsers have the translate functionality.
Hmm.
Um, and I think they have a small section like for English visitors, click here. So,
Oh, okay. 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 I
and
see.
there's always Game Market Spring, Game Market Autumn. So the next one is coming up in November. We have some very cool titles that I'm very excited of. We're releasing two new
Um,
games.
I haven't been to one of those game market in Japan. So when you attend those, are they all indie designer or is it also bigger publisher that's attending?
It's also bigger publishers.
Mm.
So you do have booths of people like ArcLight, they're the organizers of the event. You have
Mm.
people like Hobby Japan. You have your bigger indie games like Oink Games, like your Sashi and Sashi, Jelly Jelly Games were there as well. But
Okay.
those are definitely like the minor aspect of the show. You'll have like 10, 20 big companies and then
Mhm.
hundreds of, you know,
Smaller designer. Okay.
literally like pop-up tables,
Mm.
like no decoration, just like here's some plastic bags, here's some boxes. I wrote with a marker the price. Like here I am. Let's talk
I
about my
see.
game.
Okay. Okay.
Um,
Very, very primitive. Okay. Very interesting. So, okay.
that's very cool.
Hmm. Okay.
Um,
Thank you for sharing that.
so I recommend checking it out because again, it's so different. It's just such a different approach. Um, and it's part of the thing I do, right? It's before every game market. The really cool thing is on game market, they have a database of all the games that are submitted. So
Mm.
anyone that has
Okay.
a booth, you can find information about their game online, which
I
is really
see.
nice.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I'll just spend weeks opening every single game and being like, right.
Which one you like? Okay. A lot of research.
Based on the information they provided, does
Yeah.
this sound good? And it's hard
Mhm.
to tell sometimes because the information they provide can be like,
It's not a
one
lot.
paragraph,
Yeah, I see, I see.
or they can go overboard and give you like 6 pages of detailed text in every
Detail.
interaction and
I see, I see.
Um, so
Interesting.
yeah.
Hmm. Okay,
Um,
that's a very interesting insight. What other thing that you noticed that's very interesting, like very different or very unique in the Japanese board game industry versus the Western board game industry?
I think there's a trend again on inspired by size on
Mhm.
trying to do a lot with little.
Mm,
I don't know
okay.
if I said that right, but I think you get the point. Is a couple of years ago, a game really blew up internationally called Love Letter.
Love letter.
Um,
Okay. Hmm.
very popular game now. It was originally a game market release. So for any of you that are Love Letter fans and you're finding out, there you go. It came from a Tokyo Game Market and was picked up by a big publisher who saw the potential. Very
Oh.
simple card game. There's only a couple of cards.
Hmm.
Um, and the base premise is you're trying to deliver a love letter to a princess, and you have one card in your hand. Every turn you draw a card, you play one of two cards.
Okay.
That's all you do on your turn. The cards all have to do with eliminating each other in some way. So you can guess a number. If anyone has that number in their hand, they're out. You can compare numbers. If your number is higher, the lower person's out.
Okay.
You have a card that's like, if you have number X or Y, you have to play this card. And of course, if you discard the highest number card, you lose because you wouldn't want to get rid of the highest number card.
Okay.
That
Okay.
that's the gist. Very simple game, just numbers 1 to 9 or 8 in the original.
Okay.
And that was kind of one of the spearheads of this trend in design of how can we make interesting and fun rules with very few components, very polished, interesting rules with a small amount of components. And that's a trend you see a lot. Ourselves at Jelly Jelly, we have a couple of games that come in small boxes, and the components are like 18 cards,
Okay.
16 cards, and a couple
Yeah.
of tokens. And that's another thing. You were asking me what's one of the challenges. And when things deviate from the standard rules, that tends to be not so liked. So, for example, if a card does A, but if you have card B, then there's the C. But if, the situation is D, then it actually does E. There's multi kind of,
Yeah, multi-layers.
which,
Yeah. Okay.
which can be fun. But here they're like, no, it shouldn't be confusing. I often hear that actually, that's too confusing. That's too difficult.
Confusing. I see. Okay. They try to keep it simple. Okay.
Mhm. So that's definitely the trend. You do have your Japanese publishers that do bigger box board games and a lot of components and a lot of complicated card effects, but it is typically just one single idea that's very focused in on, very honed in on. What can we do with this mechanic and this mechanic only? And that's still been the trend. That's kind of slowly making its way into the West as well. And it all kind of started with Love Letter a couple of years ago.
Okay. Got it. Thank you so much for sharing that. I'll definitely check out that game as well. I haven't
That's good.
played that
That's
one.
good fun.
So,
That's
as
good
we're
fun.
kind of wrapping up today's interview, if you have to share just one piece of advice with someone that's getting started within the toys and the game industry in general, what would that be?
Good question. Based on my own experience, just reach out to people. Worst thing that can happen is you won't hear back. They'll say no.
Yeah.
And that's the worst case scenario, right? In my experience, people that work in this industry are super friendly. They're super open. They're very supportive. So if there's any question you have, if there's anything you're struggling with, even if I don't know the answer, I can maybe find someone who does know the answer. So it's important to remember that there's a whole support network of people because we're all in it together. We're all trying to figure it out together. So if people are trying to enter the business, I think that would be my main thing is just reach out to people that do this thing already. There's so many creators of all different shapes and sizes. You will find someone who can point you in the right direction or maybe even team up with you. Recently I just reached out to someone I was a fan of, and now we're working together on a game, just kind of accidentally.
Okay.
So again, worst thing that can happen is they'll say no.
Yeah.
And the other thing to remember is these things take time. We're not talking video games. It's not like 5-6 years to produce a video game, but these things take time. So whether you're listening to it as someone who's interested in working in board games or anything like that, making a prototype, testing it, playing it, ensuring it works, ensuring all the rules are fun and that it fits your market, and then the art style is good, and then you have to go through production and you have to check the production is correct, and you have to go through shipping and everything. It's a long process. So don't rush it. There's people there to support you. There's people to reach out, and message me if you want. I'm available. I can help point you in the right direction.
Okay, so for our listeners that want to learn a little bit more about your companies and a little bit about yourself, where is the best place to find you online and find your company online?
Sure. So, Jelly Jelly has many different avenues, as we described, right? We've got, we do a little bit of everything. I do want to point people towards our newest venture, which is Jelly Jelly International. That's jelly2intl.com.
Okay.
Jelly2, because Jelly Jelly, and then INTL, is short for international.
Okay.
And that's an initiative I launched to try and help highlight Japanese designers. And what I
Okay.
was just talking about, Tokyo Game Market,
Mm.
I reach out to indie designers in Japan. We get their games. We translate the rules to English. We make sure
Yeah.
that you can play it. And we send you the original Japanese game. So you have access to unique Japanese games that you won't get outside of Japan in
Mm.
English.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that's kind of the website where I'll be focusing most of my time at the moment.
Mm.
We're currently reviewing some very cool Japanese indie games that I'm hoping to have up on the store soon.
Oh, nice.
Um, and we have articles and interviews with Japanese creators, the Japanese approach to making games, to designing games, to getting games ready for game market. Maybe even a podcast in the future. Who knows?
Okay. Nice. Okay.
And then if you want to find me myself, I'm at Twitter at Papa Polski.
Mm.
Because Polski was my nickname at university, and I was often a father figure to my to folks around me. So
I see.
I'm at Papa Polski. Feel free to say hello.
I see. Okay. Thank you so much for sharing that. And thank you so much for your time today, sharing all the stories and the journey and some of the challenges that you face in the Japanese board game industry. And just like I mentioned, you're the first guest coming from all the way coming from Japan. So thank you so much for being on. So
Of course. No, thank you for having me. I hope I was coherent despite the early morning and my lack of caffeine. And
no, you're
not
you're
good.
totally fine. And thank you for our listener for tuning in to this episode of Toy Business on Spark podcast. We hope you have enjoyed today's conversation and find it insightful and inspiring. If you like what you have heard, be sure to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform so you never miss an episode. We really appreciate your support and would love it if you can leave us a review and share the podcast with your friend and colleague. For more resource tips and the latest update in the toys and game industry, visit our website at toy-launch.com. Join the conversation and connect with us on social media using hashtag ToyBizUnbox. We'd love to hear your feedback, suggestion for future episode. Until next time, keep innovating, keep creating, keep bringing joys to toys. This is Jason Shea signing off on the Toy Business Unbox podcast. We'll see you in the next episode. Thank you so much, everyone.